that. All right, welcome back, everyone. I just want to go over a few things up here on the announcements. I posted that the lecture for tonight was available as of last night. I didn't tell it was available then, but it was available last night. So in class today, we're just going to be working on some problems out of the back of chapter 5 that just directly relate to the slides that we went over in the lecture that was posted last night. I just want to go over a few more things right here real quick. I know we've been kind of back and forth in our weeks while we've been working this semester, and I apologize about that. So this is last week's assignments right here. We went over chapter 4 last week. I posted a lecture down. Okay, chapter 4 lecture right here. So I'm sure everyone's noticed that. I just now today got chapter 4 homework posted and the chapter 4 quiz. I apologize for being a little late on that. I thought about foregoing it, but I want to go ahead and do it anyways because it'll just be good practice for the exam. So I do apologize for it being late being posted. I just want to point out here, chapter 4 homework's not due till next Monday at midnight, so I'm still given a full week of time to do that. And it's the same thing, just the multiple choice questions out of the back of the chapter that we have for that. Same thing that we've been doing for each homework assignment. And then the chapter 4 quiz, it's available until October 5th as well. So next Monday as well at midnight. Okay, so I'm giving everyone a full week out on that material. And like I said, I was about to forego it, but I want to do it for extra practice before the exam. So obviously now we're in chapter 5. So here's the PowerPoints, and then I posted chapter 5's lecture in the actual week we're in right here. So there's the chapter 5 lecture going over chapter 5 PowerPoints. Chapter 5 homework, same thing, the multiple choice questions at the end of the chapter. On this homework, I'm trying to catch back up. I'm giving until next Friday. So that's still almost 12 days, so about 11 and a half days. Gives you about 4 days beyond when chapter 4 was due, just to give a little bit of a cushion there. So that's plenty of time on that. And then the same thing for the chapter 5 quiz. It'll be due next Friday at 11:59. So not this Friday, but the following Friday. So chapter 4 homework and quiz due next Monday at 11:59. So that evening of next class period, and then chapter 5 homework and quiz due next Friday at 11:59 p.m. So that way that'll catch us back up on our assignments. And I apologize for the delay in getting chapter 4 stuff up and posted, but that gave everyone a little bit of a breather and a break from the exam. So. We'll go ahead today. Like I said, we're just going to be working through some problems out of the back of the book. So we'll go ahead and just jump right into those. I'll go ahead and get this on here. Okay, good. It's already set up. Like I said, we'll be decently fast getting through these. I don't foresee it's taking us too long. Sorry for dealing with me on this thing. This thing's so weird to get to sit down. Sorry, I'm just trying. Zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so the first one we're going to start with is going to be on page 252 at the back of chapter 5. And it's going to be brief exercise 521. Do you want me to?
I can pull up my book on my phone.
Are you sure? I was going to say, you can take a picture out of this book if that'll be easier, if you want. Snap in. We're actually going to be working all 3 of these, so if you just want to snap that whole shot, you can walk around. It's fine.
There we go.
You got good?
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. I can see everything.
All right, cool. And I'll leave it up there. I'll go back and forth from up there as well as we work through it. All right, so the first thing we're doing, like I said, is brief exercise 521 on page 252 at the back of chapter 5. And this is dealing with consumption ratios, okay? So if you've watched the lecture that was posted for chapter 5, that's the first quantitative part of the lesson dealing with consumption ratios. Okay, we're going to be using the data for the Zapato company given above. So right up here, this data right here is what we're going to be going off of. And what they're wanting us to do for this problem, the first part of it is to calculate the consumption ratios for the 4 drivers and round them to the 2 decimal places. So once again, these are the 4 drivers right here, the driving activities, and we have them for each company. So what we want to do is work out whatever the consumption ratios are for the 4 drivers listed above there. And I know you're in the middle of working right now. I'll leave it up to you whether you want to just work through them together at the same time, or if you want to attempt it first and then go through it after you attempt it. It's up to you.
I'd prefer attempting it.
Okay, I would too. I would just want to just check with you.
Okay. I'd rather attempt it and then go through it.
Right. I'd rather do the same thing. Okay, and for everyone who's working through this, for the consumption ratio, slides 18 through 23 of the PowerPoint for chapter 5 is what covers the content for the finding the consumption ratios. So once again, that's slides 18 through 23 of the PowerPoint is what's going to show how to calculate the consumption ratio.
Do you want us to round to the nearest first decimal after the percentage?
Round to the 2 decimal places after it. You ready? Okay, cool. All right, so once again, we're for 521 right here, we're calculating the consumption ratios based upon the data up here that's given. Okay, let's see if I can. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just set up the activity driver. I'm going to make myself a little column here. So we'll have the cutting hours. assembly hours, inspection hours, and then the rework hours. Okay, next I'm going to set it up for each company, a little column for each company. I'm just going to Vaquero. I just love how they use these great names. Vaquero and Vaquera. Okay, so now we have our little chart set up here, and now we can just input what these ratios are once we find them. So let's look back here at the data given here. So what we want to do is find the ratio, the consumption ratios for each, right? So first thing is, what is the formula for finding the consumption ratio?
It should be the activity driver you're trying to measure divided by the total activities drive, like the total on the two activity drivers.
Right.
3 or 4, whatever.
Right. So the consumption ratio is exactly what you said. It's the amount of the activity driver per product divided by the overall activity driver for whatever that activity driver is, right? Whatever both products are that are made up for. So that's the formula that we're going to use. So for the cutting hours, if we can see here, we have cutting hours for Vaquero is 4,000, for Vaquera is 5,400. So what we're going to do for Vaquero is just going to do 4,000 divided by the sum of 4,000 and 5,400. Okay?
And I got 42.55%.
And then round. We'll just say we'll round up to 0.43. Is what it is. But I mean,
Okay.
it's just a rounding. But you're right. You're right on your estimation. That's right. So we'll just say 0.43. Okay, for Vaquero. And once again, that is going to be your 4,000 divided by the sum of 4,000 and 5,400 right here. So next for Vaquera, that's going to be 5,400 divided by the sum of 4,000 and 5,400, which is $9,400, right? And that'll give us the 0.57, obviously, which is just the remainder. Okay, for the assembly hours, same thing. What we want to do here is we want to take the amount 2,850 and divide it by the sum of the 2 hours, or the two products right here, and so on and so forth. Right? That's how we find the rates. Pretty simple. Like I said, just the main thing is just the amount of the activity driver per product over the overall amount of the activity driver for all the products. So pretty straightforward on finding the consumption ratios. Okay, on the second part, it asks if there is evidence of product diversity or not, and it asks us to explain. I'll go ahead and just fill in these rates that we find. 0.38, 0.62, 0.28, 0.72, 0.25, 0.75. Okay, so once again it says, is there evidence of product diversity? So what do you think in terms of product diversity? Is there evidence of product diversity based upon these?
I'm not sure. I would. If I had to take a guess, I'd say no, maybe because they're like heavily skewed towards the Vaquero. So like
Yeah, no, you're on the right track. There is evidence of a little bit of diversity, just because it ranges from the 0.25 to 0.43 on Vaquero for right here, these rates. That's what we were looking at, and that's not a material amount. So there's just a little bit of evidence of it, just because these are a little off. So that's all it's asking on product diversity, because we know that there's going to be a little bit of different amount of stuff going into each one of them. So the products are a little bit diverse there. So right track. It's a little, because there's not much of a difference between 43 and 0.43 and 0.25. So that's all it's saying. It's just being able to look at the data and show it's a little bit of a diverse there. So that's it for brief exercise 521. The next one, we're going to be using the same data up top here once again, and They want us to calculate the activity rates that would be used to assign cost to each product. Once again, we're using the same formula, the same data up at the top here that we used for the first problem. But this time we're going to calculate the activity rates to assign cost to each product. And for people that are working through the problem, the activity rates can be found on slides 25 and 26 of chapter 5 within the PowerPoint. So once again, information concerning the activity rates can be found on slides 25 and 26 of the PowerPoints in chapter 5. Oh, you're fine. Take your time. That's what we're here for. Good. Okay. All right. So once again, we're calculating the activity rates right here. that would be used to assign cost to each product. And once again, this is going off this data up here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is just think about what the formula is to be able to find these activity rates. Okay, so pretty much all we want to do is take the actual cost, right? The activity cost. So for example, cutting. So obviously cutting hours is going to tie to cutting, right? So we want to take the total cost and just divide it by the total activity driver, right? So that's all we're going to do for each one of them to find the actual rates. So for the first one, for cutting, 225,600. So we had the total price, 225,600, divided by the sum of these two, which is $9,400. So that's going to be $24. Sorry, $24 per cutting hour. Okay. Next, for the assembling, is 300,000. Okay, so once again, the assembling, 300,000, because remember it's the total cost of the activity over the total activity driver. So that would be over the assembly hours right here, over 7,500. Okay, and that'll be $40 per assembly hour. Okay, makes sense. So I don't think we need to do the last two. I think we got it. Same song and dance all the way down here. So once again, inspecting would be 67,500 divided by the total of the inspecting hours between the two. Next, reworking would be 45,000 divided by the rework hours of 150 plus 450 for each of these, and that'll give us our activity rates. Okay, the next one we're going to do is down here, exercise 523. Okay, so 523 is dealing with calculating activity-based cost to the unit cost. Okay, so once again, we're going to do this bottom one right here. So now we don't need to worry about the data up here. It's just the data is given right here. Okay, so now we're calculating the activity-based costing for the unit costs. Okay, and the accompanying slides for this type of problem right here for chapter 5 is on slides 28 and 29 in the PowerPoint. So if you're trying to work out the calculating activity-based costing for the unit cost, you're going to find that information on slides 28 and 29 of the PowerPoint from chapter 5. good? Okay, we'll work through it. All right, so for exercise 523, once again, they want us to calculate the activity-based costing for unit costs. So it says here that Perkins National Bank has collected the following information for 4 activities and 2 types of credit cards, okay? So we can see here, here's the activity on the far left. The first one is processing transactions. The one in the middle is the driver. We can see the driver for the activity of processing transactions is transactions that are processed. We can see here the two different types of credit cards. We have a classic card and a gold card, and then the activity rates, okay? So it says at the bottom there are 7,500 holders of the classic cards and 30,000 holders of the gold cards, okay? What they want us to do is calculate the unit cost, rounded to the nearest cent, for classic and gold credit cards, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and set myself up a little chart real quick based upon the activity and then the two different cards right here. So what I did is just set it up to look like this right here. I'm going to raise it up just a little bit. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so we got the activity, and then we have 2 different types of cards, okay? We'll start with processing transactions first, okay? So for processing transactions, we have to take the activity rate and multiply it by the driver, okay? So the activity rate in this case is 0.2 for processing transactions. So under processing transactions, I'm going to do 0.20 times the activity rate or the activity driver, right? The activity rate times the driver. So for the classic, it's going to be times 12,000, right? So processing transactions 0.20 times 12,000 for the classic, and that's going to give us 2,400. Next, 0.20 times 7,200 for the gold. And that'll give us 1,440. Okay. The next thing we have is preparing the statements, and that's once again just the activity rate times the driver. In this case, it's the number of statements, and we just do the same for the classic and gold. So for preparing the statements, we're going to have the 0.95 as the activity rate. Okay, times 12,000. That's going to give us $11,400. Okay, the next one, 0.95 times the 7,200. It gives us 6,840. Remember, we're getting this 12,000 and 7,200 from the preparing statements from the number of statements, once again, which is the driver, times by the rate, right? So we've got that. Next, answering questions, same thing. The activity rate is 4.00, and we just multiply it by the drivers for each one of the cards. So same thing here. For answering questions, $4 times 24,000. That'll give us $96,000. Okay, next, same thing, the activity rate, $4 times the amount or the driver of 36,000, and that'll give us 144,000. And then we're going to do the same thing for providing ATMs, the 1.5, the activity rate, and multiply it by whatever the driver is for each one of the cards. So the activity rate is the 1.50 times the 48,000. That's for the classic. That gives us $72,000. Next, the activity rate of 1.50. Once again, times the driver of 14,400 for providing the ATMs. That'll give us $21,000. $600. Okay, so does everyone understand this step right here? Just the activity rate by the activity driver. Pretty simple, right? Just kind of building off what we've been doing. So the next thing we want to do is just sum up these two columns right here for the total cost of each one of these cards, right? So if we sum this up for the classic card, we get $181,800. For the gold, if we add these up, we get $173,880. Okay. Now, how do we get from total cost to the unit cost? What do we have to do?
Divide by the units, I get units bought or produced.
Or by the amount of cards in this case, right? Yeah, but you're right. By the number of units that are out there. Remember, it says there are 7,500 card or holders of the classic cards and 30,000 holders of the gold cards. So that's how we'll do that. So 7,500 for the classic cards. Then we have the 30,000 card holders for the gold. And obviously right here, we're just going to divide this out. Divide the total cost by the number of card holders. And then obviously that's going to give us our unit cost for each one. So this divided by that right there will give us 24.24. This right here will give us $5.80. Makes sense? So it's straightforward activity-based costing for the unit. Your activity rate just times the activity driver, and then use them for whatever units are being compared, and then sum them up, then divide the total cost by however many units are out there, or whatever is pertaining to whatever the problem is. So and that'll give us the unit cost. Pretty straightforward, right?
Yep.
Okay. Once again, this part, the activity-based unit cost, is found on slides 28 and 29 in the PowerPoint lecture. So the next one we're going to move to Is that better?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Okay. So the next one is brief exercise 524 right here. Now what we want to do is assigning cost to activities. So based upon this data right here, we want to assign these costs to the activities down here. So we'll read through this right here. It says McCourt Company produces small engines for lawnmower producers. The accounts payable department at McCourt has 10 clerks who process and pay supplier invoices. The total cost of their salaries is $500,000. The work distribution for the activities that they perform is as follows. So we can see here we have the different activities and then the percentage of time on each activity. So what they want us to do is assign the cost of labor to each of the 3 activities in the accounts payable department. And if you needed to take a picture again, you could. I forgot.
Oh, no,
Is that good enough?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's on board.
Okay. I'm getting a little better at dealing with this Elmo thing. It's hard to move that thing around and see.
Oh, yeah. I'm done, by the way.
You done? Yeah, this is more of a quick problem. Okay, these are the ones I like right here.
Yeah,
So
these are the quick ones.
yeah. So once again, assigning cost to the activities after reading through this. All right. So all we want to do here, pretty much long and short, we're assigning cost to activities, right? So these are the different activities, and you can see the percentage of time on each activity. Okay, well with the data that's given, we only have a total cost of salaries of $500,000, right? That's the only thing we're really concerned with in the data that's given in this problem. So really, all we have to do for this problem is take the $500,000 and just multiply it by the percentage of each one of the activities. And that's going to give us whatever the breakdown would be. So for comparing source documents, it's going to be 0.25 times 500,000, which is $125,000. For resolving discrepancies, that'll be 0.60 times the 500,000, and it'll give us $300,000. Same thing, processing payment, 15% of the time, so 0.15 times the cost. So that's just straightforward. I mean, that's about as simple as it gets right there. So just take the percentage of the time spent on each activity and just multiply it by whatever the cost is we're trying to allocate out amongst the different activities. So we're good on that. Being able to assign cost to activities in the PowerPoints is located on slides 41 through 44 of the lecture. So if you need to refer back to how to assign the cost to each activities, once again, that's on slides 41 through 44 of the PowerPoint lecture. All right, the next one we're going to do is work on the brief exercise 525, and this is where we do activity-based customer costing. So this is dealing with where we're trying to figure out how much it costs to service customers, okay? And from the slides, this one right here is going to be based on slides 56 through 61, okay? Can you see that one all right too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It says 1,455,127, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, making sure.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at the activity-based customer costing. So it says here that Sleepy's company produces mattresses for 20 retail outlets. Of the 20 retail outlets, 19 are small, separately owned furniture stores, and one is a retail chain. The retail chain buys 60% of the mattresses produced. The 19 smaller customers purchase mattresses in approximately equal quantities, where the orders are about the same size. Now, data concerning Sleepy's customer activity are as follows. So we can see here in this chart we have our customer activity. It says currently customer-driven costs are assigned to customers based on units sold, a unit-level driver. So that's what we're talking about the order filling costs and the sales force costs. So these are going to be allocated based upon the actual units purchased, okay? So that's where they're getting these numbers from within this activity data. Okay, what's required of us for this problem is to assign cost to customers by using an activity-based costing approach, round activity rates and activity costs to the nearest dollar, okay? So the first thing that we want to do is we want to find the order filling rate and the selling call rate, okay? So in order to find, we'll start with the order filling rate, okay? So in order to find the order filling rate out of this data, what we want to do is we want to take the order filling cost allocated for both the large retailer and the small retailer and add these two together, right? So we'll take, for the order filling rate up here, we'll take, and it'll be the 1,455,127 plus the 970.85. Okay, so once again, we want to take the sum of the order filling cost allocated between the large retailer and the small retailer. So once again, that's these two amounts. So we can see that here. Sorry. The order filling rate, that's the two amounts between the order filling cost. And then we want to take and divide that. So take the sum of these two and divide it by the orders placed, okay? The sum of both orders placed right here. So the sum of both of those orders placed is going to be, sorry, let me get my paper down here, $3,636 orders. So once again, the order filling rate is going to be the sum of the order filling cost allocated between the two retailers. And then we want to divide that by the sum of the orders placed, okay? So once again, that's how we're finding the order filling rate. So if we take and we do the numbers here, that's $667 per order. Okay, and that's going to give us our order filling rate right there, okay? Next, we want to find the selling call rate. Okay, in order to find that, the sales force cost allocated, because it's dealing with the selling call. So we're just going to do the same thing we did for the order filling. We're just going to sum these two together and then divide them by the number of sales calls, okay? So same thing there for the selling call rate. That was going to be $719,000. $719,820 plus the $479,880 divided by 900 orders. That's going to give us $1,333 per call. Okay, so once again, in order to start the activity-based customer costing, first thing we want to do is find the order filling rate and the sales call rate, because that's what's relevant for this problem. Once again, that's just the sum of these items divided by the actual where there's a direct correlation or relation to the activities. In this case, the sales force cost goes to the number of sales calls, and the order filling cost goes to the orders placed. So once again, we take these sums and divide them by the number of calls into orders placed. Once again, we can see that, so we found our rates. Okay, so then the next thing we want to do is take those rates and then apply them by the activity that's going on down here. So next thing I did was do a cost assignment here, set up a little table we can see here. And between the two things we're concerned with is ordering and sales calls here. And we're just going to set up a column for each one of the retailers, the large retailer and the smaller retailer. Okay, so the first thing we want to do for ordering, all right, we want to take the rate we just found right here, the 667 right here. So we'll take the rate $667, right? We want to multiply that. Sorry, just came out. That's better. So 667 is the rate we just found, right, for the order filling rate, because we're concerned with ordering right now. And we're dealing with a large retailer, so we're just gonna multiply it by however many orders were placed for the large retailer right here. So 667 times 36, that'll give us 24,012. Next, for the ordering, we use the same rate that we found, 667 up here for the order filling rate. Okay, and then we're doing it for the smaller retailer. In this case, the orders placed was only 3,600. So 3,600 calls. Okay, and that will give us 2,401,200. Okay. Next, for the sales calls, we just want to take the rate that we found up here, the rate per call. Okay, which in this case is 1,333. And then we want to look at the sales calls for the large retailer, 18. So we're going to multiply that by 18 right here. That'll give us the 23,994. Once again, same rate, 1,333. Okay, once again, that's the selling call rate we found from step one. And now we're with the sales calls with the smaller retail is what we're concerned with. So number of sales calls with the smaller retail is 882. So we multiply that by 882. And that'll give us 1,175,706. Okay? So then the next thing we want to do is just sum up these columns right here, and that's going to give us our answer. Sum this, we'll have 48,006. This one will have $3,576,906. So is everyone seeing that? So once again, in order to do the activity-based customer costing, the first thing we want to do is find our rates. In this case, the rates are going to be the order filling rate and the selling call rate. So we found those once again. It was the sum of these divided by the activity of each one of those drivers. Then the next thing we want to do is take the rates we found and then just multiply them just by whatever the relevant activity is. In this case, it's orders placed and number of sales calls for each company. Like you see here, we set up our chart, did the rates that we found up top, and just multiplied it by the relevant activity for each one of the retailers. Worked our way down. That's the total cost. Not bad, right? Okay, the next one we're going to go to. Is going to be brief exercise 534. This is activity-based supplier costing. Do you see that okay?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay. people working the problem out right here for activity-based supplier costing. This data can be found on slides 63 through 68 of the PowerPoint lecture for Chapter 5. Once again, the information with how to solve activity-based supplier costing is found on slides 63 through 68 of the PowerPoint for Chapter 5. Good. Okay. All right. So this one here, once again, we're looking to solve for activity-based supplier costing. So it says here, Blackburn Incorporated uses a Tavallo Manufacturing and Piura Company to buy two precision machine parts used in the manufacture of its permanent magnet motors. So part number 625 and part number 827. Consider two activities: testing parts and reordering parts. After the two parts are inserted, testing is done to ensure that the two parts work as intended. Reordering occurs because one or both of the parts have failed to test, and it is necessary to replenish part inventories. Activity cost information and other data needed for supplier costing are as follows. So the first part here is activity cost caused by suppliers. So this is triggered by testing failures and reordering as a result. So the activity testing parts has a cost of 4.5 million. The activity of reordering parts has a cost of 1.125 million. Then now, down below here, we can see we're given some supplier data between the two companies, and in regards to each part number that we order from each company. Okay, so once again, we're ordering the same parts from two different suppliers. Okay, and then we can see here we have the unit purchase price, units purchased, failed test, and number of reorders. So what they want us to do is determine the cost of each supplier by using activity-based costing, and then round the unit cost to 2 decimal places. Okay, so what's the first thing you think we have to do to start solving this problem?
We need to find the total testing cost per unit purchase, per unit, and then
The rates, right? The per unit, right? So that's what we wanted, the rates, which you're right, which is just the per unit. So that's the rate we're looking for, right? So, and what rates are we looking for? There's the two rates we're looking for. What are they?
the number of reorders, and then
What's the number of reorders? What's that related to?
the reordering parts.
Right. So if that's related to that, what's testing parts related to?
Failed. I think it's failed.
Yeah, failed test, right? So that's the correlation between the data right there, right? Okay, so it's also known, I think the slides say the cause and effect relationship is how we go about doing stuff like this. So cause and effect correlation, however you want to put it. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is find the test rate and the reorder rate, right? So we know that's going to be based upon the test. We'll start with the test rate first. So that's going to be dealing with the testing parts cost and the number of failed tests, right? So what we'll do is take the overall cost of the testing parts of 4.5 million. Okay, and we want to divide the overall test rate cost, 4.5 million, by the number of failed tests. Okay, and we're concerned with the number of failed tests here with both companies. Okay, so we're gonna take the sum of all four failed test data for both parts for both companies. Okay, so we're gonna take the sum of 4,500, 2,925, 39, and 36 right here to be our denominator. Okay. So once again, we've got the testing parts cost, which is our numerator. Our denominator is the sum of all failed tests right here. So that's, once again, is 4.5 million, okay, divided by $7,500, okay, and that's the failed test. That's going to leave us with a rate of $600 per failed test. I'll just abbreviate it, okay. So the next thing we want to do is the reorder rate. So the same thing, we want to just take the total cost as our numerator and then divide it by the number of reorders, because that's what ties to the reordering of parts cost. Okay, so once again, we'll take the reordering of parts of 1.125 million. That'll be our numerator up here. And once again, we want to divide that by the number of reorders. Remember, it's the sum of both companies' number of reorders, okay? In this case, we only have reorders from Otavalo Manufacturing and not Piura. So it's going to be the 225 plus the 150, okay? So in this case, once again, we take in the cost as our numerator and our denominator is the number of reorders. So 1.125 million divided by 375, and that'll give us a rate of $3,000 per reorder. Okay, so everyone good on finding the rates. Same thing we've been doing, right? Okay, so the next thing we want to do is use these rates and the activity data that's given right here to find the total purchasing cost per unit of each component. Okay, so the first thing I did is go ahead and I just set up a little chart again. So we'll have the purchase cost, the testing components, and then the reordering components. Okay, that's going to be the relevant items that we're looking at here. So the purchase cost is given in the data below. So the first thing for the purchase cost, we can see here, we'll start with Otavalo Manufacturing with part number 625. We have the unit purchase price of $30, and then we need to multiply it by the number of units purchased. Okay, so that's going to be $30 times $450,000. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that right here. $30 times $450,000, or 450,000 units, and that's going to give us 13,500,000. Okay, next, we just want to go on and so on and so forth with each part. So for part 827 under Otavalo Manufacturing is going to be $78 per unit purchase price times the 225,000 units purchased. Okay, so same thing there. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just carry out same thing. The unit purchase price for part 625 under Pura Company, and then the $84 per unit price times the quantity bought here for part number 827 under Pura Company. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just fill my chart in with that data. So next, $78 times 225,000 units. And that's for part number 827 of the manufacturing company. That'll give us 17,550,000. Next, $36 per unit times 56,250 units purchased. And that's for part number 625 of the Pura company. Will give us 2,025,000. Okay, next, the cost of $84 per unit times 56,250 units. That's for part number 827 over here for Pura Company. And that'll leave us with $4,725,000. Okay, so that's the purchase cost. Once again, the way we found this data is just the actual unit purchase price for each of the parts for each relevant company multiplied by the units purchased. So once again, 30 by 450 gives us the part number 625 for Otavalo Manufacturing. Next, we're concerned with the testing components. So here we want to take our test rate that we found up here of $600 per failed test. So that's the rate we're going to use down here for testing components. So I'm going to do the $600. Once again, that's our rate that we found, the test rate up top here at the beginning. And now what I want to do for this one is going to tie it to the number of failed tests for each one of the parts under each one of the companies. Okay. So once again, the failed test rate is $600 for part number 625 right here for Otavalo. It's going to be 4,500. So 600 times the 4,500, 2.7 million. Okay. Our rate's not going to change, so I'm going to go ahead and just fill in our rate down here for each one of the activities just to work ahead. Go ahead and put my multiplication sign in here. All right, so here's our rate. Once again, this is our test rate, $600 per failed test. And once again, we just want to multiply that by the number of failed tests for each part for each relevant company. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just fill that data in as well. So the next one was 2,925. That'll give us 1,755,000. Okay, the next one, 600 times 39. That'll leave us 23,400. Next one, 600 times 36. That'll leave us $21,600. Okay. Next, the reordering components. Same thing. We want to use our rate first, which is the reordering rate of 3,000 per reorder that we found from step 1. I'm gonna go ahead and just fill the rate in down here, same way I did above. So once again, that's 3,000 for each item here. Go ahead and do our multiplication symbol in. Okay, so for reordering components, once again, we have our rate for the reorder rate per reorder. Okay, and we want to take that rate and multiply it by the number of reorders, once again, for each part for each relevant company. So this last line right here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just fill in my chart again. So 3,000 times 225 here will give us $675,000. Okay, next 3,000 times 150. That'll give us $450,000. Next, 300, both these are 0 because there was no reorders from there. So obviously this is going to be 0 and 0 over here. Now the next thing we have to do is just sum our columns. Each one of our columns here for the items we just found. So if we take and sum each of these columns up right here for the total, that'll give us $16,875,000 for the total price for part number 625 for Altavalo. For part number 827, if we add those up, it'll be $19,755,000. For Pierre Company, for part number 625, if we sum those up, it'll be $2,048,400. And for part number 827, it'll be $4,746,600. Okay, then what we want to do is divide it by the number of units. So once again, we can find this in the data given. So unit purchase price, right below that we have the units purchased. And once again, we just plug these numbers in for each one of our columns. So I'm just going to plug these in down here. Once again, that's 450,000 units right here. 225,000 units right here. 56,250 and 56,250. Okay, now if we just do our math here, just divide the total amount by the number of units, then that'll give us the unit cost for part number 625 from manufacturing company of $37.50. Divide this by that right there. Divide this by this. That gives us the $87.80 per unit cost for part number 827 for Altavalo Manufacturing. Once again, it's a total cost divided by the number of units. For here will give us $36.42 on this one. And then the math here will give us $84.38 per unit cost on this one. Okay. Does everyone see that? Pretty straightforward. So it's a lot like doing the same thing for the customers. It's just done at the opposite end of the spectrum with the suppliers. So it's just first we have to find our rates and then just go through about whatever material is relevant. For this one was the purchase cost, the testing components, and the reordering components. So that gives us the activity-based supplier costing. Okay, we have two other ones, but these are quick ones. We're through the longer ones now, so we should be finished relatively soon now. The next one here is going to be dealing with non-value added cost. So brief exercise 527. And it says here, Lemons Incorporated has the following two activities. Retesting worked products. The cost is $720,000. The retesting cost of the most efficient competitor is $225,000. Welding assemblies cost $1.35 million, and that's going to be based on 67,500 welding hours. And a benchmarking study reveals that the most efficient level for Lemons would use 54,000 welding hours and entail a cost of $1.08 million. What's required of us for this problem is to determine the non-value added cost of each activity.
Say 1,080,000.
Yes, 1,080,000. The last number.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,080,000. Okay, for people working this problem out, watching the video, for the non-value added cost, where the explanation and the data that's on the PowerPoint slides, it's on slides 87 through 90 of Chapter 5 PowerPoint. Once again, slides 87 through 90 on Chapter 5 PowerPoint deals with non-value added costs. Good. Okay. All right, so let's look at this one real quick. Once again, Lemons Inc. has the following two activities: retesting reworked products, costing $720,000. The retesting cost of the most efficient competitor is $225,000. Welding subassemblies cost $1.35 million for 67,500 welding hours, and a benchmark study reveals that the most efficient level for Lemons would use a 54,000 welding hours and entail a cost of $1.1 $1.08 million. Okay, so what they want us to do is determine the non-value added cost of each activity. Okay, we'll start with the first activity, retesting work products. Okay, so what do we think the non-value activity of that's going to be? Of part one with the retesting reworked products that cost us $720,000. So what's of that amount? What's the non-value added activity?
Rework I'm not sure.
So in this case, it's going to be the entire $720,000. It's going to be a non-value added activity because retesting is going to be a non-value added activity, right? Because it's something that should have been done right to begin with, right? So it's not really adding value. It's just correcting something or testing something that should have been right from the jump, right? So in this case, that's kind of a trick question. The retesting reworked products, it's just knowing that that's a non-value added activity. So the full $720,000 right here for the first part of this question is going to be just a non-value added cost because retesting is just non-value. The welding sub-assemblies cost, it says here that the actual data for us, we have a cost of $1.35 million based upon 67,500 welding hours. But the benchmark study revealed that the most efficient level would be to use 54,000 welding hours, only costing $1,080,000. Okay, so out of this data, let's go ahead and pull out what the non-value added cost would be on this. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is find the rate. So we'll go ahead, and the rate would be, we want to take the 1.35 and divide it by the hours, right? That's going to give us the rate of what we need. So let's see, 1.35 million times the rate, which was 67,500 hours. Okay. If we, I'm sorry, not multiply it, divide that. Sorry. 1.35, once again, which is our overall cost of the welding, divided by the welding hours right here, 67,500. And that's going to give us $20 per welding hour. Okay, so there's our rate for the welding hours. Okay, the next thing we want to do is find the formula that we need to pull out the non-value added cost, and that's going to be, the formula is going to be the actual quantity minus what the standard quantity is. Okay, and then multiply that by whatever the rate is. Okay, in this case 20. So the actual quantity here is going to be the 1.35 million. Let's see here. Nope, sorry. It's based on the hours. Sorry, it wasn't not the cost. So it's based on the hours. So it's going to be the actual quantity of hours. So the 67,500. Okay. And then minus what the standard quantity should be. So but minus the 54,000 welding hours. Okay. And then multiply that by the $20 an hour rate that we found up top here. Okay. So if we go through that and work that out, that's going to give us $270,000. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so once again on this one, the retesting reworked products, that full cost was what? Just it's the full non-value added. It's just a waste of a cost. Not a waste. We have to do it, but it's not non-value added. And then pretty much here, the difference here is just the difference between what we're spending here and what it should be here, right? So that's merely just the difference between the two, but the formula is the actual quantity minus the standard quantity times the rate that we found up top. So that's how we pull out the non-value added activities. Okay, the next one we're going to work is just really quick. It's dealing with velocity and cycle time, okay? And it's just this exercise 528 here, and it just says Colby Company takes 36,000 hours to produce 144,000 units of a product. Now what they want us to do is calculate what velocity is and what cycle time is. And for people working on this, watching the video, velocity and cycle time can be found on slides 92 through 95. Once again, velocity and cycle time can be found on slides 92 through 95. You good? Okay. So first thing, pretty much all we need to know is the formulas for these two. We can see there's not much data given. So the formula for velocity is just going to be the units produced, okay, over the time that it took to produce it. So obviously that's going to be 144,000 divided by 36,000, which will give us 4 units per hour, right? Next, for cycle time, that's just time divided by units. So that's just the reciprocal of what the other one. So in this case, 36,000 divided by 144,000, and that'll give us 0.25 an hour or 15 minutes. Okay, so velocity and cycle time. Like I said, velocity is just the reciprocal of the cycle time. So it's just the inverse of what it was. So that's all I have for everyone today, just working through these problems. Once again, I just wanted to point out one more time before we get out of here. Just stress that I'm sorry about getting Chapter 4 homework and Chapter 4 quiz up late, but it is in the previous week. So make sure we get Chapter 4 homework and Chapter 4 quiz in. We have till next Monday at midnight or 11:59 p.m. And then in this week we have the Chapter 5 homework and the Chapter 5 quiz, which will be due next Friday at 11:59 p.m. So that's all I have. I'll post this lecture right underneath the other lecture right here. So that'll be the practice problems there, and that's all I have for everyone. So everyone have a good evening and a good rest of your week, and thank you for your time.